Shading can help you give the illusion of a three-dimensional object. We're going to practice how to draw and shade 5 different forms. To draw a pyramid, you start with a basic triangle. Then you'll draw a line from the top point diagonally down to the right and from the bottom point diagonally up and to the right. From 1/4 up in the back, the cast shadow goes down and to the right, and then that front right corner up and to the right. We also need to have a sun over on the left side to show where our light source is coming from. I want you to draw the same thing a little smaller off to the side so that way you can label where the values go as well. The sun, or our light source here, is hitting the side of the pyramid that we can't actually see. So that would be the lighter side, but that's not visible to us right now. This front is going to be a medium value. So you will press down on your pencil about as hard as you would while you're normally drawing or writing, and you will neatly fill in the entire area of the front of the pyramid. Make sure that you are not scribbling and that you are trying to fill this in as smoothly as possible, and also trying to keep it the same value all the way across this whole area. A pyramid has a flat side, so this is a flat value. All of it should be the same 50% value. The right side of the pyramid is directly across from our light source, so that is going to be a dark value. On our value scale, that equals 75%, and you'll be pressing a little bit harder than you did on the medium side. This is still a flat side and will also have a flat value. So you should try to make it as even as you can in this entire area and have it all be 75% value. The cast shadow is always going to be your darkest value, so that will label as black with a B there. And this is where you will press the hardest that you can with your pencil without breaking the tip. You may need to go over this area more than one time to make sure that it is darker than your 75%. And you want to try again and fill it in as evenly as you can with no scribbles or any empty spaces. You can also check for and erase any stray marks you might have. For a cube, we'll start with a basic square. Then, to make it three-dimensional, the upper 2 corners and the lower right corner will need diagonal lines up and to the right. They should be the same angle and the same length for each one of them. Connect the top 2 points with a horizontal line, and then the side points with a vertical line. You'll need to make sure again that you have your sun in the upper left to show where your light source is coming from. The top of your cube is flat, so the top of your shadow is also going to be flat, so that'll go straight off to the side. Then from the very bottom corner, you'll draw a line that is up and to the right and connect that for the shadow. Then you need to again draw a smaller version off to the side so that way you can label it. The top of the cube gets the most light from our light source, so that'll be a light value, which equals 25% on your value scale. A cube also has flat sides, so this is also going to have a flat value. The entire top of this cube should be an even 25% value, and you want for it to be where you are just barely touching the paper with your pencil. The front of the cube is going to be a medium value, just like the front of the pyramid we just drew. This is using the same amount of pressure that you would if you were just writing something normally. So it should be a little bit darker than your 25% value, and the medium value should equal 50%. So you're not pressing down too hard, but also make sure that you are filling the area completely and not any scribbles or any spots that are empty or slightly darker. The back side of the cube is also going to be dark like the back side of that pyramid we drew. And here you need to be pressing a little bit harder than your medium value. This is a 75% flat value, so the entire side of your cube should be equal to 75%. Try not to have any parts that get lighter or darker, and have a nice smooth fill the whole side. The cast shadow is always going to be your 100% black, and you are pressing as hard as you can with your pencil without breaking the tip, and you might have to go over the area more than once to make it as dark as you can. This should be a darker value than your 75%, and make sure that it is even with no scribbles and completely filled in all the way. For a cylinder, we're going to start with an oval on the top, and then when you draw the sides coming down, they should be straight vertical lines, and you need to draw them from the very, very edge of your oval. Because the bottom of the oval is rounded, the bottom of your cylinder will be rounded with the same curve. The cast shadow will start at the bottom right point of your cylinder and go up and to the right, and then you'll draw that same line up and to the right about halfway up. The top of your cylinder is curved, so the top of your shadow will also be curved. Make sure to have your sun to show where your light source is coming from, and again, you'll draw this smaller off to the side so that way you can label where all of those values go. Just like with the cube, the top of our cylinder gets the most light, so it is going to be the light value. This needs to be a 25% flat value because this part of the cylinder is flat. And remember that I am just barely touching the paper with my pencil and making the lightest possible mark that I can. I also want to make sure that it is completely filled in, there's no scribbling, and that it is a pure 25% value all the way through. The side of our cylinder is curved, which means that we'll be using a gradient. But I want you to draw these vertical lines so that way you can see where those zones are of the different values. We have a medium, light, medium, and dark value going from left to right. You'll start on one side and practice your gradient where you're pressing a little bit harder on one side, and as you move towards the center, you'll release the pressure of your pencil. So you'll notice here that I'm going on the left side first, starting there with medium and getting lighter and lighter towards the center until my 25% value. And I'm going over it a few times so that way it's as smooth as I can possibly get it. Next, I start having my pencil go a little bit harder towards the right side. So I'm going from that light and transitioning to medium and giving a little bit more pressure on my pencil. And then I will go all the way to the right of the cylinder and give a little bit more pressure for that dark value. You want to make sure with this that you don't have strong lines when you go from one value to the next. You want to try and make it as smooth as possible so that you can't really tell where one value ends and the other one begins. The only reason that we drew those vertical lines on the sample was so that you knew where those values are transitioning. You can erase your stray marks and then we'll move on to the cast shadow. Remember that the cast shadow is always going to be your darkest value. So this is black, and that's 100% value. So you'll be pressing as hard as you can on the paper without breaking the point and filling in this area with a flat 100% value. For the inverted cone, it starts with an oval at the top, just like the cylinder, but the lines don't go straight down. So what I like to do is towards the middle of the oval and going down, I give myself a point so that way I have something to aim for. And then from the very edge of that oval, I draw angled lines down to meet that point in the center and give any adjustments as necessary. Our light source is in the upper left again, make sure to draw that. And then for the cast shadow of the cone, you're going to, from the very bottom point, draw two lines that go up and to the right, and it'll kind of look like a less than sign. The top of your oval is curved, so the top of your shadow will also be curved. Then after this, you will go ahead and draw the smaller version off to the side, so that way you can label that one as well. Again, the top flat portion of our cone is getting the most light, so this will be the light value, 25%. I am barely touching the paper with my pencil, and making the lightest possible mark that I can. I need to make sure that it's not scribbled, it's completely filled in, and all 25%. It doesn't get any lighter or darker in any spots. For the round side, we're going to have the same sections like we did for the cylinder, but instead of those lines going straight up and down, they're going to come from the top and angle towards that point at the bottom. So you're going to have 4 triangles pretty much. And it's the same value, so it goes from left to right: medium, light, medium, dark. And when I shade, I need to also make sure that those shaded areas are angled as well, not just going straight up and down. So I start off on the left side again, and go with my medium value and have it get lighter towards the center. And sometimes rotating your hand a little bit can help for getting that kind of pie wedge shape. And I'm just trying to smooth it out here, and then I will begin going from right to left for the darker values on that side. So again, I need medium, which is 50%, light 25%, then back to medium 50%, and I'll have dark 75% on the back half of that cone. So the darkest part of the form is always going to be the opposite of where your light source is. So since our light source is on the left, that darkest value on that form is going to be on the right side. I'm also going and erasing little stray marks and trying to keep all of the values where they're supposed to be. Again, you want for this curved part to have a gradient value where it's very smooth and you can't tell where one value ends and the other begins. I forgot to label my smaller one off to the right, but this is the black 100% value section. So make sure that you label yours. And this again is a flat value of 100% where I am pressing as hard as I can on the paper without breaking my point. Make sure that it is completely filled in and all 100% value. Doesn't get lighter or darker in any spot. For a sphere, you're going to just start by drawing a circle. It's okay if it's not perfectly round. Just do the best that you can. Our light source is in the upper left corner as usual. And the cast shadow for a sphere is just an oval, but it has a little bit covered up by the sphere, so a little bit of the left is going to be cut off. So it'll go up and to the right and curve around back towards the sphere. Make sure to draw the small version off to the side where you can label all of the zones. The first zone will be a small circle in the upper left, then a slightly larger circle towards the upper left again. These will be your light and medium sections, and then the back end will be dark. The shadow will be black. I start in the upper left side and work from the edge towards the middle. I'm using a medium pressure and then releasing that pressure until it's about light or 25% value where that circle is on my sample drawing off to the right. You'll notice that I am always working from the outside and going towards the center. You want to make sure that you are not trying to shade from one side to the other of the sphere. This one takes patience and making sure that you are going in the correct direction. So I like to try and get a medium to light all the way around my sphere and then begin to darken those shadows in the areas where it will be dark on the back side. So you'll notice I am moving my hand and turning so that way it will be easier for me to shade towards the center. You also can turn your paper. That's usually how I work, but for the video I didn't want the paper turning all which ways. So on the back side, I know that it is going to be a little bit darker, so I can press a little bit harder with my pencil on the edge there, but it is always better to be a little bit lighter than what you need than to go too dark. It's much easier to go over an area again and darken it a little bit than it is to back that value up a little lighter. So try and be very careful with that. So the back end here is all my dark value. And again, I'm going towards the center, releasing the pressure as I move through the medium value and towards the light value. And I want you to try and practice getting this shading with just the gradient of your pencil. Try not to rely too much on smudging to get your values, because it really is helpful to be able to get the gradient without smudging. Certain materials like colored pencils don't smudge like graphite does, so it's harder later on if you don't really practice this skill now. My light area is a little bit too dark, so what I'm doing now is using my eraser and just tapping the spot where it should be lighter, and that will pick up just a little bit of the graphite at a time and lighten that small area. If you just try to erase like you normally would to completely get rid of a line, then it will cause streaks and make more issues. So just lightly tap the paper with your eraser to lighten it. Now I just need to fill in the cast shadow, which again is a flat 100% black value. And you want to make sure that it is the darkest mark that you can make without breaking the point of your pencil. It should be darker than your 75% value on the back of your sphere, so that way you can tell where the object ends and the shadow begins. And just fill that in completely with a flat value where it doesn't get any lighter or darker.